All right, so now we have the 25 thumbnails we need. They're in a folder called Thumbnails. The document is 8.5 inches wide, 11 inches high, and 150 pixels per inch. So everything is going well. So in the last video, I just circled a few at random. This time, let's go ahead and pick 5 that we're interested in because we're on part 2 of 3. The roughs. We're going to take our 4 favorite thumbnails and make 4 roughs using whatever method your heart desires. Once you're happy with these roughs, go back to the assignment 14 file, create a group called roughs, and consolidate these into as few layers as possible. So in other words, you shouldn't have 5 layers for 4 roughs. You should at most have 4. But if for some reason your roughs are smaller than half a page, you might be able to fit them in. This happens actually sometimes when students have 2 horizontal roughs. They'll knock them into fewer layers, but 4 is fine. So don't worry if you go over 4, you did something wrong there. So don't. But otherwise, you're fine. You might get away with 2 layers, but you definitely shouldn't have more than 4 layers. If you need more layers, you're overworking yourself. Take it easy. This is a planning assignment. If your roughs are taking more than half an hour each, you're probably overdoing it. Label your layers roughs X through Y, where X is the starting point and Y is the end point. So for most people, it would be like roughs 1, roughs 2, roughs 3, roughs 4, because you'll have them. And you can use any medium you want at this stage: Photoshop, Illustrator, pens and pencil, photographed clay, woven strands of grass, anything. As long as you're comfortable with it, as long as it's legible, you're good to go. And what do I mean by legible? Should be able to see it. Let me show you some traditional media stuff, and then we'll get into doing it digitally once we pick a few of these to work with. All right. So this is about where a rough would be if we were doing something. This is enough to see where it's going. This is enough to show our client as like, this is a direction we're thinking of. Should we go ahead and do the comp? You know, we could give them 4 or 5 of these things and go, hey, what would you like to explore with the comp? And then be ready to roll. And this is just pencil on paper. Then when you get to the comp phase, it'd probably be something like this, where you would start having it either in black and white, or you might do something in color, so that you could demonstrate, like, this is what we're thinking of. We're thinking of a font like that sort of thing. Now, depending if this may, in many cases, still be the rough stage, and a lot of times the comp stage would actually have the font and the colors going in. This might be towards the end of the roughs or the beginning of the comp. So you might do like one polished composition, or comprehensive, I should say, for it. So after you show the rough comprehensives, you'd have another thing where you have the polished comprehensive that would have the font selected and the colors and that sort of thing. Then have the client sign off on all of that. Essentially anything that's being selected that might be more work for you to do later, you'd have the client sign off on, so that you don't have to do it later. Now, for this particular assignment, for this demonstration, I'm just going to pick a few of these, and then we'll do probably just one of them as rough, so you can see what the process looks like, because it takes a little while. And I'll give you some hints and tips on things you can think about when you go through. So again, I'm cheating a bit. I just said Don Quixote because I don't want to waste your time while I slowly look through all the things that we have available at MJC. So you guys should be selecting a real play or concert or theatrical event or festival or party or any kind of event, but a real one. So in this case, I'm just saying that there's the Don Quixote play going on or something, which isn't necessarily true depending on the year that you're viewing this, depending on the year that I made this. Right now, it is for sure a falsehood, so we're not going to worry too much about it. I kind of like these two. I think that they're interesting. This one's holding on to, this is getting close to the 70-30 concept of proportions, where the idea is that there are some proportions that look better to humans than other proportions. So for example, 30-70, 90-10, 60-40 are big ones. I often have to write them down because I forget. It's just how you cut stuff up, or like morph things in order to make them look smaller or bigger, that sort of thing. Now at this point, we'd also want to start thinking about the style that we'd want to do this in. And so if you have a specific style in mind that you want to do, now would be the time to do it. So if you, for example, have a copy of the show poster recommended book, which again, it's not required. I just think it's interesting. It has a bunch of styles that are marked in there. I think it has something like, I counted this out at one point, 5, 10, about 12 of them, like oxidized, degradation. I don't know why I had problems saying the word degradation. Oxidized degradation, halftone realism. You've got illustrated ornamentation. You have all kinds of styles. Iconic simplification. I think I'm going to go actually for iconic simplification. I think that would work. So the show posters book, that's The Art and Practice of Making Gig Posters by Pat Jones and Ben Nunnery. They define iconic simplification as an attempt to mimic classic design and illustration styles. You'll see obvious nods to old print ads from the 40s, 50s, and 60s. Art will typically be created in multiple tones of one hue, such as a duotone or a tritone, in other words, 2 tones of one color or 3 tones of one color. Large fields and simple geometric shapes characterize the style. Some of my favorite thumbnails so far are leaning towards that. It utilizes, the style characteristics include utilizing multiple tones of one hue or color, like a duotone and tritone, employing flat graphic styles that mimic cutout construction paper, incorporates sophisticated compositions and type, light use of line, heavier use of shapes and positive/negative space. Simple illustrations in this style walk the line between graphic design and illustration, inspired by old classic design illustration styles, such as old print ads from the 40s and through 60s. Storytelling and narrative qualities of simple illustration leveraged, similar to a storybook. Compared to other gig styles, it's very narrative, draws inspiration from storybook covers, infographics, textbooks, old instructional video graphics. I'm digging all of those. There are also many others. I'm going to post some videos to different concepts of styles that I think are worth watching, and as you have time, go and look through those. Or if you just have a poster or an artist you like, go ahead and Google what kind of style that is and look at a whole bunch of different things so you can get an idea for style you know, what you may want to be working towards. You may not necessarily get there, but just working towards that could be wildly beneficial. That said, there's a piece of information I should probably tell you about. Let me go ahead and make a new window here so that I can scribble all over it. We'll just pop something in. And of course, since I've got this second monitor, I'm just going to break one of these off so that I can actually draw. All right. So a while back, I was told about a Disney artist named Bill Perkins who had an interesting way of trying to determine what a style is that you can go through. Now, if this goes over your head, don't worry about it. It'll start to make sense over time. You don't necessarily have to utilize this right now, but if it makes sense to you, then yeah, by all means, go for it. So let's just draw out a classic triangle here with maybe a slightly bigger brush size. Yay. So we're going to say that style has 3 points on this. You have form, you have line, and you have mass. So what's the difference between mass and form, you may be asking me? In this case, form is going to deal with light and shadow, whereas mass will deal with local value. So right there's a question. What does that mean? What's going on there? So mass would be shape, color, local value. So mass could have light and shadows in it. It's the differences that make up the mass. So if you squint your eyes at a work, at a piece, trying to figure out where the style is, and there's no noticeable difference between the values, then it's most likely controlled by the form. So if you can still see the differences once you're squinting, then it's controlled by the mass. And again, the mass is the shape and color. So form's just the cast light on that sort of thing. So for example, red and black, they could be the same form. In other words, they look very similar, but they could have a different mass. So this is how you can get a consistent style. If you're trying to replicate one, you can look at something and try to figure out like where it lies on this triangle. So let me just give you another example of what I mean by this triangle. So we've been playing around with color. If we had red, yellow, and blue, and we mixed all of them together, we're not going to get a very interesting color. We're going to end up with just white, right? That's all we get. There's nothing going on that's of particular interest once you've mixed all these guys together, and I missed a little bit. So what you really need to do is not mix all of them equally as powerfully as possible. What you want to do is work somewhere along an edge or a point, trying to figure out where things could go. So the same would be true for figuring out a style. Don't just try to have equal mass, line, and form. You may have a great reproduction, but you won't necessarily have the have a style that really means something to you. You'll just have kind of a replica of whatever you're looking at rather than a stylized things. So you're going to want to try to figure out what the dominant one will be and the secondary one, so that you can try to measure something out. So for example, if you're into video games, something that would have a high form might be like Half-Life. Something that would have high mass, that would be, again, local values, or color/local values. Might be like Fortnite, for example. I misspelled that because they don't spell it the same way. Or Overwatch would be another one there. Let's see. If you had line, like, for example, Bendy and the Ink Machine. By the time you guys watch these, this will probably be all classic games instead of, Ink Machine instead of actual games. So if you're into games, that's those are three styles that would bounce strongly on one of these going on. But what about something else that would be in there rather than just going in? So let's say, let's bring one up real quick. Here's Alphonse Mocha? I always say that wrong. Well, whoops. Let's bring him in so we can actually look at this a little bit. So looking at this, clearly lines, right? It's very strong in line value. I don't see a lot of light and shadow, honestly. Like, you're not seeing things sculpted by light and shadow as much as maybe color. So where would you place this dot? I'd say lines certainly are very, very strong. So I'd think about like something over here, but then there's a little bit of light and shadow, not a whole lot. So maybe out a little bit, because we can see under the chin here, we've got some shadows, and we've got some shadows being cast directly below, but they're very flat, and we've got some shadows cast there. They're not really making the image, but absolutely quite a bit of color. So I would probably put that dot right about here to say that that's what Alphonse Mocha would be like, or Mucha would be like. Mucha? Mocha? Again, not my forte to say this guy's name, but essentially that's how you'd start to look at a style and start to pull this apart and figure out what you want to copy on it. So that way you don't copy an actual piece, you just imitate the style the piece is in, and that way you can join a style. All right, so again, that's the Bill Perkins triangle that I was shown a while back. Super useful. I like to look at things and try to figure out where they land on this triangle. But again, you don't have to use this. I just think it's a pretty powerful tool, so I wanted to share it with all of you. Let's go back to the document. Now, we were supposed to have circled a few of these in red, so let's do that now. Oops, it would help if I were on a layer. And not a red brush, but a red pencil. So I'm going to grab some red. Hello, red. And I'm going to say this one. It's kind of interesting to me. I'm going to say, although I kind of covered it up, I don't really want to do that. I'm just holding down the shift key so that it makes these lines. Say this one. It's pretty interesting to me. I like those two a lot. Kind of like this one. And number 4, any of them. I don't know why I stuck with just one windmill for so long. It wasn't until the very end I started thinking, well, wait, what if I had multiple windmills? This is kind of interesting, just having the horse and the windmill rather than Don Quixote in there. I kind of dig this one, just using the lasso tool. It very quickly lassoed this out, made kind of a woodcut style. That might be a fun one to explore. Yeah. Again, though, I'm probably only going to have time to do the one of these because I don't think you're going to want to watch me do each of these one at a time. So let's just, for the heck of it, we'll say, yeah, you know what? I'm torn. That one's, we've already have a few of him right by the windmill. We'll do the horse. Okay, and so we've got the triangle, right? Now, if I were doing this with pen and paper or with pencil or taking a photo, or if I were doing any of that, then I'd be good to go. But in this case, it's time to do a rough. You can collage things together. So if you wanted to, you could do something like this. I'm going to copy this. I'm going to make a new document, tell it okay, paste that down, right? No biggie. And now I'm going to go to image size, and I'm going to get this close to 11 by 8. And it's not spot on, but that's fine. Because now I'm going to go to image canvas size, and because I didn't make it any larger in either dimension than 8 or 11, I can do this. Tell it okay. Now I've got something I can work with, and I can see how far off I was with my little triangles ratio size, my little rectangles ratio size. So I'm going to Control T. So yeah, watch out for that. If you don't get a rectangle spot on, you're going to have to move some elements around. So do be careful. So we'll call this rough 1 in progress. Okay, and just as a reminder, the roughs from the traditionally drawn ones looked something like this. And this was just it. It was a pen, just went through them. This is sufficient for this class. This is plenty what I'm looking at. But if you wanted to go a different route, you could do a collage type thing. So let me pop open some free images. And you can see right off the bat at public domain images, we have a horse that's pretty close to the horse we're looking for. And over at Wikimedia, we've got a windmill that I think will be sufficient to start with. Let's grab the horse. Always make sure you save these somewhere you can get to them. I'm going to toss this in the demo folder here where I've been working, and maybe the demo folder here. I'm going to pop back over to here. I'm liking this one. This is also Wikimedia. This should be free for reuse. Let's double check. Let's see, because that's not always the case, but it should be, or not. Looks like they don't have it up. So, oh, no, here it is. And cultural heritage module. And we've got a Creative Commons, share, adapt, remix, even commercially. So we're good to go. Thank you, Wikipedia. When you guys make it big, don't forget to donate money to Wikipedia and Wikimedia Foundation because they make our lives possible as instructors and students. I think this is a better fit. Yeah, we've got some grass and stuff to work with. So toss this in. This is just a possible way to do it. Again, this is not the only way. Just going to toss in this horse. A horse is a horse, of course, of course. All right. And resize this horse a bit. Okay, looks good. I just tossed it in a smart object so we can get the wonderful Mr. Ed. And I'm just going to magic wand. This looks like one of those images that will work pretty well just with a few clicks of the magic wand tool to start off. Whoa, a little too far. And hold down the Alt key and click the mask. And brush and D, whoops, and X, D for default colors, X to flip them so that I get black up front. So in the original image though, I just had the horse sticking out. So let's do something like that. We'll take the quick select tool, and I don't want a painful cut. So I'm going to do that. Painful cut is one where it looks like you chopped something off, like a limb of your model. We don't want to have something like that going on. Okay, and I'm surprised at how closely that fit. So we've got a horse. It's like shockingly close. We got a horse. Let's grab our windmill. Got a demo. We've got 2 windmills or 1 windmill. We've got 2 windmills to choose from. Actually, the first choice might be the better choice. Let's toss that in there. So we got this windmill. And again, toss it in a smart object. Now, when I'm not going to leave these as smart objects, this is important. That will be too big. When I bring it over to the final file, it's going to just be a flat image. Okay, so watch out for that. And I will leave that on. Even some grass for now. Alt click so we can get that. Let's do standard magic wand. I'm just using shift a couple of times to get to it. Turn off contiguous. Click in there to get all the blue. With contiguous off, it will fly everywhere to get that blue. And we'll just grab those colors. Okay, and there should be more over here. Might as well clean it up while I'm over here, even though it's not going to show. Alt delete to fill with black. Control D to deselect. Same stuff you've been doing all semester. And I've got a little bit more. Again, contiguous is off, so it's grabbing stuff everywhere. Alt delete to fill with black. Control D to deselect. All right, and just toss this windmill underneath the horse. I like the windmill up higher. Now, let's go for a 30-70 size here. This looks about 30%, 70%, so we need some grass. And some sky. So I'm just going to pop on over to the big old pile of copyright-free images that have been slowly gathered over this semester. Hopefully you've been doing the same as you go through these projects, just so that you don't have to keep hitting up the same thing again and again and again. This looks like a good sky to use. And I'm going to put this at the bottom. Actually, that's just a good background, solid background to use. Let's go with that. And I do want some grass, though. I think it would look better going in. So let's grab some grass. Would you be good? Would you make good grass? Oh, you would be good grass. All right. Except there's a house in the way. I'm just going to, well, maybe it won't be. Oh, maybe it will be. All right. Marquee. And alt click. Whoops, wrong way. Control I. I've clicked on the mask. Control I to invert that. We've got some greenery. I'm going to go ahead and cut the grass off of this one. You know what? I like this grass better, so I'm just going to get rid of this. I've changed my mind. And come over here. Control C, Control V. And hold down the Alt key. I'm just going to toss in some grass like that. Yeah, it's cheesy. Be better to mix it together, but look what I can do. Control E, Control E, Control E, Control E, Control E. Merge all those down. Filter, blur, and then I'm going to do the, I'm going to save before I do a blur so it doesn't crash out. I have saved. Filter, blur, and I'm going to do a tilt shift blur if I can find it. You know what? Let's just do a Gaussian blur. Oh wait, blur gallery. Let's do tilt shift blur. All right. And hopefully you all remember the tilt shift blur. You can just drag these components around in order to control where the blurs are occurring and how blurry it is and how much the drop off is. And tell it okay. All right, there we go. So we've got some stuff. I said that I would flatten this together. There's no text yet. This is probably a good idea to put like some words in here. Now keep in mind, this is very, very important. On the one that I'm turning in, it's just going to be a flat image. It's not going to have live text or anything like that. That way, if you do a font that I don't have, I'll still be able to talk about it and manipulate it fine. So I'm just going to put Don Quixote in here. We'll talk about fonts in the next assignment, actually, so that we can work more on fonts before we get to our poster. And let me go ahead and go to just real quick. Whoops. What do we got? I can't really see what I'm doing. Control H to hide the highlight so that I can adjust all this and see what I'm doing. Wow, you think that I'd have a good font for this just off the bat? Oh, I like that one. I don't like that one. Don't like that one. And again, this is just a rough. We really don't have to worry too much about the font until we get to the comprehensive. Depending on your client, though, you may want to, I'm going to go with this one. You may want to actually have like the font and get that signed off on so that you're good to go. You know me, I like legibility. Flip this around, whoops, flip this around, pop on into the font, add a stroke, outside, normal mode, white. Oh wait, I need black, not white. Double click on that, there we go. All right, so we've got Don Quixote, and then text, 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 whoops. Text, text, copy, paste, 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 just so we can get an idea. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and stop this video, and yeah, I'm going to, no, you know what, one last thing. Let's go ahead and actually move it over. Control-Alt-Shift-E. Now at this point, this I wouldn't really consider quite done. If I'm collaging it, I'd probably do one or two more steps. It looks pretty close, honestly, for a rough. But just for the heck of it, I'm going to quickly go into the filter gallery, and I'm going to try to show a little bit of what I would plan to do. I'm going to do a cutout. I'm going to do a sketch around that cutout of graphic pen, charcoal, there it is. No, I got rid of my cutout. Let me get my cutout back, add a new one on top of cutout. We're gonna have to do this in multiple goes. Ooh, oh, or not. Yeah, I'm gonna have to do this in multiple goes. All right, so just real fast, let's go ahead and just start with the cutout. Delete that thing, tell it okay. Now that was a destructive edit, which I'm okay with in this case because I'm just in a hurry. But really I should have done that as a smart object first. Now I'm going to go to filter, and I'm going to go back to filter gallery, and I'm going to pop on over to watercolor. And I'm going to, on top of the watercolor, do one more thing, which is, nope, not the Sumi. I'm having a real, there it is, crosshatch. The watercolor, tell it okay. Oops, I hit the wrong button. Tell it okay. And then I'm going to set this to multiply. Nope, not multiply. Yeah, I'm just going to leave it alone, the first one. All right, sorry about that. So went on a tangent there, but we're coming up on half-hour mark. I know you don't want to watch it all that long. Okay, select all, copy, and paste it in to the original, but I'm going to make a new group called roughs. And now paste it in there. So I've got this rough. This rough is about twice the size it should be because I said that it should be about half the size of the sheet. Now, notice I'm not making a smart object because, there we go. I don't really need to in this case. I'm not going to be looking at the full size thing. You know what? Forget it. I'm going to leave this nice and big because I think it was working out a-okay like that. So we'll leave it right there just so it fits. That will be fine. We'll call this though rough 1. All right, so then we do 3 more roughs going on from there. And then we'd move on to the third step, which we'll cover in the next video.